Good morning, everyone. In this module, we are discussing on the main topic, Human Genome Project. So, what do you mean by Human Genome Project? It is an attempt or it is a project aimed to decipher the sequences of the DNA sequences, the nitrogenous base sequences, which are present in the DNA. And that knowledge will be how we can implement that knowledge or apply that knowledge in various fields of scientific innovations. This project was started in the year 1990 and approximately 10 years it took for the completion. Even after that also, the final completion of this project was done in the year 2003. And the main aim of this project was the main challenges faced by the scientist was because they found out that within the human beings there are approximately 3 billion base pairs are there within the DNA, and that much of huge informations or the base and their order and their sequences, the type of sequences, etc., has to be deciphered. And for deciphering that one, the cost, even one base itself, the cost is around $3 per basis. So when we calculate this one to the $3 billion base pairs, the amount was very huge. And not only the amount, this much of huge data, the information to store in a file, it is impossible. So for that storage, we need to depend on the highly efficient data storage equipments, that means supercomputers, and at the same time the speed of the computer, the storage facility of the computer, and at the same way the highly sophisticated software and hardware is required. So these were the main challenging facts which were ahead of them while framing the project. And to assist this one, or they themselves, they called it as mega project. And to this project, completion of project, first the US government, the main countries they were involved is US, that is National Institute of Health and Department of Energy, then Wellcome Trust Group from UK. Along with that, few more countries also participated, that is Japan, France, then China, Germany. All these countries together, they have coordinated and they contributed their informations and they guided for the completion of this project. And we'll move on to the next step, the main goals of Human Genome Project. The main aim of this one is to identify all the approximately, it was believed that earlier it was believed that approximately 80,000 genes were present in human genome. But later they found out that there is only 25 or maximum 30,000 genes only. But even then they have to identify these 30,000 or 25,000 genes which are present in the human genome. And along with that, the genes they have found out, but each gene consists of many bases. And the order of that bases within that genic sequence also they have to find out. So the second goal they have framed is to determine the sequences of 3 billion chemical base pairs that make up of human DNA. The order, the sequence means the order, whether it is adenine or thymine or guanine, and in that order, in which order these 4 base sequences are arranged, and that the total number of base sequences is 3 billion, approximately 3 billion. That means when we are saying it is approximately 3.1647 into 10 to the power of 9. That many bases are there. Their order means only 4 letters only is there, 4 bases, A, T, C, G. So in which way they are arranged? So that is another challenge for them. Then the third one is storage facility. How can we store this much of data and their order and their sequences in which chromosome it is? All these storage facilities are highly in need. And to handle this data, whether this such sequences are in chromosome 1, in which part of the chromosome 1 is it in the PQ sequence, that means upper part of the centromere, or lower part of the centromere, in which region, their region itself they have named it as PQRST, and that way. So whether it is in that region or in this region, so that is another the goal, to locate the exact position of that genic sequences. So for that they need very powerful tools for handling this huge data. They have to analyze the data, and they have to make it, and they have to order it, and they have to place it in that correct location. So that data handling was very important. Then after finding out the sequences and their locations and all other things, how can we implement these informations in various other sectors, such as in the field of medicine, in the field of diagnostics, in the field of therapeutics, in the field of vaccine development. In all these, even in the field of virology sections, nowadays we are coming across with the corona pandemic situations. So each time the mutation, when it is taking place, it is with the help of genome sequencing only. We can find out whether that particular strain is mutated or not. Is there any change that occurs in their genic sequences or base sequences? So if any change occurs, means we can confer that or we can infer that there is mutation. So based on that genome sequencing only, now we are calling it as UK strain, Indian strain, and African strain, etc. So the same way, if you have developed a system of sequencing the bases, then how can we implement these informations into different fields? Such as already I said, there are different fields where we can implement such informations. Then at last, but not the least, because when we are deciphering the sequences, their bases, their information, their order, their location in the chromosome, everything, we have to address this to a committee. That committee is called as Ethical, Legal, Social Issues Committees, LC we'll say. Because that by getting the permission from this ethical, legal and social issues, that are LC, then only we can go ahead with this project. So first confirmation we have to get it. So all these were the goals in front of them when they were starting up this project. Then when we move on to this rough pictorial demonstration from the textbook I have taken, that is first of all Human Genome Project only. So the human, which the person who is going to contribute the DNA. So for the first time, they have taken the DNA from Watson, who is very famous in Watson and Crick model of DNA. So Watson's chromosome, 22nd chromosome only they have taken for the as for study, not the whole 22nd, the whole chromosome set of Watson only. And the last one is, the first they have analyzed this 22nd chromosome. Then the last they have analyzed annotated the first chromosome of Watson. So Watson's DNA only have taken for the first time for the scientific study. So we have to select the DNA, or we have to take the cell, any nucleated cell can be taken, and that cell has to be isolated. And from the cell, the DNA has to be extracted, because the cell membrane, cell membrane, then cytoplasmic components, etc., and all have to be removed. Nucleus also, nuclear membrane has to be removed, nucleoplasm, the protein contents, the RNA, everything has to be removed, and finally we have to extract the DNA alone. So that is the third step. The DNA is extracted, or the chromosomes are extracted from the DNA is extracted. Then that DNA is fragmented into many pieces, and each piece is being sent, because in one lab itself this work will not be completed, because huge data and huge analyzing and huge storage facilities are required. So the scientific community itself divided that each fragments. They have divided the DNA into, amplified the DNA, the vaccine's DNA they have amplified, and they have sent it to different parts of these countries what is mentioned above. That is US, UK, Japan, Germany, France, China, Germany. And there the scientific teams are divided into groups, and they have analyzed and they have developed a method. Already they have developed a method, and by following that Sankam method, they sequenced the regions. And with the help of interconnecting computer programming and information data handling, etc., they have exchanged it, and finally it was unified into a single data, and that only came out in the form of Human Genome Project. So this is just a rough sketch of how this procedure was done. We will learn more in detail about each and every step. So here the features, when we discuss about the features of Human Genome Project, after finding out all these inventions, they have found out very too much of informative knowledges. And what are they? Means the human, they said, the human beings contain, or the human genome contains approximately 3 billion, or we can say 3,164.7 million nucleotide bases. Base pairs, we can say, base pairs. And the average gene, that already we said approximately 30,000 genes are there. So each gene averagely, approximately, they will consist of approximately minimum of 3,000 bases. But the number of this one is average, I said. So the maximum number, and there is least number of genes which are present in, bases which are present. So the maximum number of bases which are present in a special type of gene which codes for the protein, muscular protein, that is called as dystrophin. And this dystrophin gene, which contain approximately the maximum number, that is 2.4 into 10 to the power of 6 bases. That means 2.4 million bases. Whereas the least number of bases which is present in Y chromosome, that is approximately 231 genes only is present in that. So the least number is in the Y chromosome, and the that is 200 and least number, it is present in Y chromosome. Then the next one, I think, sex determining factor, that only, not sex determining factor, STY gene, that contain less number of bases. Then the total number of genes they have found out, it is 30,000 genes approximately. And in that 30,000 genes, 99.9% of genes what you and me, it is almost same. Only 0.1 difference only makes each person different from the other one. 0.1. And 1% difference only between a monkey and a human being. So what does that mean? Almost majority of the genic sequences are same in closely related organisms. One person to another person is only, it makes only 1.1 difference in genomic sequences. And one species to another, it is only 1%. So you can confer from this, or you can infer from this concept, that is all these organisms are formed from a common ancestor. And they are sharing 90% of the genomic sequences as it is when they are coming in a particular not species, particular order, we can say, in a particular order. Then the next one, it is in that itself, even though we have found out 30,000 genes, at present we were able to find out the function of approximately only 50% of genes. The remaining 50% of the functions of the remaining 50% genes we have to find out. Only 50% genes only the functions we know exactly. The remaining is up to the future generations for finding out their function and their role in the human beings. Then in that itself, only 2% of the genes only will code for the proteins. That means the remaining 98% of the genes, their function, what we know at present, it is almost non-functional. Non-functional we cannot say. Some of them are regulating, acting as the regulators. We have learned in operon concept. Some of them they will act as the modulators, and majority they will be acting as the repeating non-coding sequences without any proper functions. So only 2% only will be converted or will be translated. That sequences only will actively taking part in the formation, in the process of translation, and as a result, 2% of the total genome only is taking part in the function or regulating the characteristics of an organism. Then in that itself, already I said only 2%. Some of them are acting as the modifier, some of them are regulators, some of them are acting as the enhancers, etc. And even a very good number of gene sequences which are just repeating sequences, or we can call them as junk genes. They'll be repeated in many portions, in many number repeatedly. Actually, they are at present, even though they are non-functional, it is believed to be that in the course of evolution or in our ancestral forms, millions of years back, our ancestors, it may be functional. But due to the evolutionary step advancements, when they advances into new features, new climatic stages, new environmental situations, some of the genes that gradually were become non-functional, and they will be pushed towards one particular regions, mostly in and around the centromere region and in and around the telomere region. These repeated sequences, because in course of their evolutionary advancements, some of them will be completely will lose their functions and their regulatory functions, etc., and they'll be pushed towards that regions. So such types of repeating sequences we'll call generally as satellite genes or satellite regions or satellite DNA. And these repeating sequences are just stretches of repeating DNA sequences, bases in the DNA. They do not have any coding functions. They are non-coding sequences. But even then, that is giving significant, they play a very important significant role to determine the structure of chromosome and their dynamics and their evolutionary trend towards the modern organisms. Then the chromosome 1, already I said, 1 has the most number of genes. It is approximately 3,000. Exactly when I say it is 2,968. And Y is having the least number of genes, that is maximum of 231 genes. And when we consider the entire human genome, there are approximately 1.4 million locations. There is a small change. That means normally we'll call it as single nucleotide polymorphism, SNPs. So as already we said, 99.9% it is same, and only 0.1 location only there is small changes between you and me. In that itself, approximately 1.4 million locations, there can be a small change occurs that is called as single nucleotide polymorphism. That means the change occurs only in one base. The typical example for a single nucleotide polymorphism we can give, we have already learned, that is sickle cell anemia. There we have learned when they are transcribed into mRNA. On the 6th codon of the sickled trait in the beta globin, the GAG is changed into GUG. That means sixth codon, the centermost adenine is changed into uracil. So when this adenine is changed into uracil, there occurs the change. And as a result, sickling of RBC is taking place. So like that, single nucleotide polymorphism, there are in a human beings, there are 1.4 million locations there single polymorphism can occurs. It may reflect in the form of disorders. Sometimes it may reflect in the form of which one silent mutations. It won't affect the person because we have already learned certain genic sequences, certain amino acids, GA, GA, GG, 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 GGA, GGC, GGU, etc. Like that way. The last codon, the last one, even if there is a change, sometimes it will code for the same. Glycine, GA, GGG, GGC, GGU. All these codes for glycine. So one base alone, if it is changed, it need not reflect always in disorder, but such changes are called as where only one base only is changing, then that is called as SNPs, or it is collectively we'll call it as SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphism. These are the main characteristics they have found out after developing this project. Now we'll move on to the principle behind this DNA sequencing. So there are two principles based on that, two methodologies they have found out. The first one, it is called as expressed sequence tags. But nowadays we are not following that one because they followed another one, the DNA sequencing, that is sequence annotation. So there are two methodologies, express sequence tag and sequence annotation. What do you mean by express sequence tags? Means express sequence tags means the in the DNA, the whole DNA when they are taking, instead of taking the order of, instead of finding out the order of the bases that is present in the DNA one after another, they will allow the DNA, the regions of the DNA to transcribe, and from there into mRNA, and from there the translation. So which all regions are actually taking part in transcription, and from there into transcription into protein. So the protein producing regions, the translation regulated regions in the DNA, they will find out, and that regions alone they will make it out in the form of or that alone, that there the order of that bases alone, they will sequence it one after another, and then they will convert that information in the form of a database. But they found out that method is not that much convenient as it is said so. Then rather than, they found more convenient of the second method. That method is called as sequence annotation method. The sequence annotation method means the whole DNA from one end to the other end, from 5' to 3' of a single strand. That order of bases, one after another, they will determine, and then they will assemble it in that pattern, and then the order, location, and their role of or function, etc. will be deciphered. So that means it is not the section or the regions alone. Express sequence tag means the regions which is taking part in the translation or in the production of, or which directly involved in the production of protein. That alone if taken and their sequences are deciphered, then that method is called as expressed sequence tag. And the DNA sequence annotation means the whole DNA, irrespective of whether they are coding or non-coding. All the coding and non-coding sequences, as in the correct order, they will be taken, and one after another their bases, the presence of which all bases, their order, their sequences, and then assigning their function and assembling all those things in the sequential order and assigning it into the chromosomes. That method is called as DNA sequence annotation. So here they adopted, for annotating these sequences, they have adopted the famous method, principle of Sanger. And Sanger scientist, he is very famous for deciphering the order of amino acids in a protein molecule. So here, first he has deciphered the order of amino acids in insulin molecule by developing the overlapping sequences. So the same method that was in protein means the order of amino acids means in DNA sequences, the order of nitrogenous bases were developed by following the Sanger method. And that method is, specifically it is called as fluorescent chain termination method. Fluorescent chain termination method. And this method, we're using a special type of nucleotide that is called as dideoxynucleotide triphosphates. That means normally in DNA it is deoxynucleotides. What do you mean? What is the difference between deoxynucleotide and dideoxynucleotide? Means deoxynucleotide, the second position, it is only H of the glucose, okay, of the, not glucose, the ribose. So in the ribose, the second position, one oxygen is less, then that is called as deoxyribose. And that deoxyribose, when it is attached to base and then to a phosphate, then we will call it as deoxyribonucleotide. The same deoxyribonucleotide, even in the third position also, if one more oxygen is lacking, then that is called as dideoxynucleotide. That means in the third position as well as in the second position, one oxygen will be deficient. So here the relevance of third position is very important, because if third position, if OH is there, then only that OH group can act as a hook. With the help of that hook, it can attach to the fifth carbon, the CH2OH of the fifth carbon. And there the one molecule of oxygen will be, one molecule of water will be removed, and instead of that phosphodiester bond will be formed. So the neighboring nucleotides will be establishing a phosphodiester bond between the fifth carbon as well as the third carbon. So in the third carbon, if that OH is not there, means automatically further addition of base sequences will not take place. Further polymerization. So with that, the entire elongation of the DNA synthesis will come to an end. The chain will terminate. So by using that method, he developed the chain termination method to find out, or he made the amplified the DNA sequences and terminated in different length by utilizing the special type of DNA nucleotides that is called as dideoxynucleotides along with deoxynucleotides. So whenever in the elongation process of the DNA replication, when they happen to meet with or bind with dideoxynucleotides, then further elongation will not take place and the chain elongation will come to terminate, will come to an end, will stop. So this method only they have implemented for finding out the sequence of the bases within a DNA strand. And here the next DNA already I said, it's all. And once if they have, so when they used this one, the dideoxynucleotides, in order to make it visible, this type of dideoxynucleotides were fluorescent or were labeled either with radio labeled or with a fluorescent dye. So here he used the fluorescent dye. So if it is adenine means one separate color they will use, thymine another color, then cytosine another color, and guanine another color. So when this 4 differently fluorescent dye labeled dideoxynucleotides are added along with the replication of DNA, in different places, different colors of DNA, dideoxynucleotides were terminated. So different fragment length with different dyes, different colored nucleotides were terminated. So different fragments when they were allowed to do the PCR. So different fragments, different length and different colored regions were able to assemble. And all these assembled fragments, when they superimposed overlapping sequences, were allowed to superimpose, they were able to detect the order of bases in uh, different regions. This order of bases they have transferred into the data storage, and then they analyze the data, and then finally they were annotated, the order they have annotated, and they assigned into respective chromosomes. This is a broad idea about how the Sanger method was working. Here, uh, what all ingredients or what all the important components they required for making this process. So, of course, we know there is a DNA template. They need a DNA template, one strand. And from this DNA template, another DNA has to be produced. So, of course, they need the amplification method, that is PCR method. So, in the PCR, we know there is a requirement of a DNA polymerase enzyme, and at the same time, a primer is required. And along with that primer, we need more amount of uh, deoxynucleotides, normal nucleotides. And simultaneously, we need termination. For terminating that elongation process or the replication process, we need dideoxynucleotides. So this dideoxynucleotides, dideoxyadenine, dideoxyguanine, dideoxycytosine, dideoxythymine, each one separately labeled with a different fluorescent dyes. So adenine is red, means the other one blue or yellow or orange, green, etc. Like that, 4 differently colored labeled one. Each bases, dideoxy bases, were labeled separately to find out the exact location very easily. So that only here it is given 4 DNA nucleotides, normal nucleotides. Along with that, a template DNA, already I said, a template. Then along with that, differently colored fluorescent dye, colored dideoxynucleotides. And here, this is the structural comparison of dideoxynucleotide and deoxynucleotide. So here I have represented the left side. It is a dideoxy. You can see the position it is marked. It is a ribose molecule for pentose sugar. And in that first carbon, second carbon you can see H only. The third carbon also it is H only. So third position is important here. Here normally in normal glucose on the right side, dideoxynucleotide only in the second position only H, whereas in the normal ribonucleotide, here it is third position, it is OH. That OH only will act as a hook. With that hook only the other nucleotide will be added. So this hook is inactivated. How it is inactivated means that third position also the OH is made into O, not O, made into H. So it is becoming less reactive. Okay, it is becoming less reactive. So it cannot bind with the 5 carbon nucleotide of the next nucleotide. So it cannot, there won't be any phosphodiester bond will be established. So automatically with this hook, it will be, the hook won't be there. So it will terminate. Further addition of bases will not take place. So how long it was elongated and where it is meeting with dideoxynucleotide, there it will come to an end. Further phosphodiester formation will not take place. So the elongation of that DNA in the PCR, it will come to an end. So you'll get a stretch of DNA with bases, and at the end of that with a dideoxy DNA. So if it is dideoxyadenine means there it will be, if it is labeled with a red color means red base will be there. And if it is cytosine blue means blue it will be there. And if it is guanine means green will be there. So in that way, different stretches of when you are repeating the PCR sequences, PCR method with the template sequences of the same DNA, we will get different stretches of DNA, different length of DNA, which is terminating in differently colored bases. So that only here in this picture it is given, the method. So the first one, it is the whole stretch of DNA we'll take and we'll separate into single stranded DNA. And that DNA we will be allowed to enter or allowed to feed into a machine. That machine is called as PCR machine. And along with that PCR machine, we will add the DNA template, then DNA polymerase enzyme. Then along with that, deoxyribonucleotides, the normal deoxyribonucleotides, and 4 different types of, that only it is given, dideoxy. So here it is cytosine. In this picture it is given cytosine, means that is labeled with a fluorescent dye of blue color. And it is guanine, means the fluorescent color with yellow color. And if it is adenine, means with the red color. And if it is thymine, means with the green fluorescent string. So as the PCR machine is running, they will read the template and the polymerization of the complementary base sequences will take place. And when it reaches with the dideoxy, cytosine, means blue labeled cytosine will assemble and the chain will automatically come to an end. So the next time when you are running, maybe it is with dideoxy cytosine. So where that particular place the cytosine is attached, to that place it will be stopped. So like that, many stretches of different length of DNA abruptly ending with the dideoxynucleotides, which is labeled with different colors, we will get. So in the next figure, I have given little more detail. In this, you see the template, the order is ATCCGCCTG. That is a template. And to that template, the primer already, primer is added, that is thymine. Not the primer is added. There it is dideoxythymine. It is a small stretch only. So we haven't mentioned about the primer. Primer will be added and the elongation will proceed. And the course of elongation, when it interacts with the dideoxythymine, here it is blue, green colored labeling only. So there it will come to an end. Oppositely, it is A. A binds with what type of thymine? Dideoxythymine. So you will get a stretch which ends with a green colored thymine. And again, the machine is amplified again when the PCR is running. The same itself, where it interacts with the next base is T only in the primer, in the template. So there, if it happens to meet with adenine, dideoxyadenine, there another stretch we will get. So you'll get many stretches of DNA which ends in different types of dideoxynucleotides. So all these fragments, so here you got one fragment, then you got another fragment, then you got another fragment. When you are superimposing all these things, you will get all these things in a single line, isn't it? So in a single line. So there, by observing that color, you can say if it is the first one, if it is ending with the green color, that means the position of that one is T. And if it is red, means there the next position it is A. And if it is blue, means next position it is G. Like that, many fragments which is abruptly ending in differently colored, when you are assembling it or assembling all these superimposed ones into a single linear strand, you will be able to locate the position of individual bases. So that is the meaning of overlapping, assembling of annotation or alignment of overlapping sequences. So when you align these overlapping sequences, it is very easy for you to assign the location of bases. Once this location of bases is assigned, then you can allot that one into the correct place of chromosome, because you know this particular sequence is extracted from this region of that particular chromosome. So you can place that sequence to that region of the chromosome. So like that, this process, the entire process will be repeated many times. Then you will get the exact order of bases within a sequence. So in this figure, I have given the last one, the left extreme left side, I have given the fragments. So here on the first one, it is a blue colored strand, it is given, that is a template. And that template, when you are allowed to repeat by PCR methods, you will get along with that many nucleotides and the dideoxynucleotides also you will get. So in different length, the chain will terminate. So you'll get different fragments with different length, and that is terminating in different labeled nucleotides. All these, when you are assembling, superimposing, by seeing that color, you can note if it is red means that particular base. So you can isolate or you can assemble the order. So this is the method that is followed. So when you are summarizing the procedure, the method, when we are saying, so that just we will read it out. The DNA sample to be sequenced is combined in a tube with a test tube with a primer, DNA polymerase, then DNA nucleotides, normal nucleotides, and 4 dye labeled dideoxynucleotides. Okay, chain terminating dideoxynucleotides are added as well, but in much smaller amount than the ordinary nucleotides, because it has the termination elongation, we require more different normal nucleotides, and termination here and there only it has to be abruptly terminated. So few dideoxynucleotides. So this will allow the DNA polymerase to synthesize new DNA starting from the primer. Then DNA polymerase will continue adding nucleotides to the chain until it happens to added a dideoxynucleotide instead of a normal one. So at that point, there won't be any further addition of nucleotides and the entire replication will come to an end. So the strand will end with dideoxynucleotide, which is labeled with a particular fluorescent dye. So this is the procedure. So when you summarize this one, for the examination point, you need only the 7 points to be to write. That is the sequence annotation, the steps. So first of all, the step is you have to isolate the DNA from a nucleus, from a cell. So it can be any cell, any nucleated cell. Okay, any nucleated cell. It can be a skin cell, it can be a hair follicle, it can be a WBC cell, any cell which contains the nucleus, because the location of DNA, the chromosome, the DNA is present in the chromosome, and that too within the chromosome, it is located within the DNA. So from the chromosome, first we have to remove the whole cell, the outer components, the cytoplasm, then the nucleus, the nuclear membrane, DNA, proteins, etc. And you will get the DNA. Already we have learned in biotechnology how to separate the DNA. By elution, we can separate that strands alone. That DNA strands have to be fragmented with the help of special restriction endonuclease. So wherever there is restriction sites, palindromic sequences of particular palindromic sequences, there the fragmentation will take place. Then these fragments, because only one chromosome you are doing, you have to make it amplified copies, because always there will be, all these are lab, there won't be any clarity in that one. So sometimes you have to repeat it many times, trial and error. Many times you have to go for a trial and error. So in order to amplify that DNA into many copies, you have to do that one to make multiple copies of that DNA fragments. And this only will be sending into different parts, the labs of the different parts, UK, Germany and all, each from, suppose if you are deciphering the chromosome 22, that will be divided into many fragments, and each fragment will be sent into one lab. So that lab will be doing that region alone. And another lab will be doing the second region, third region, fourth region, like that. Simultaneously, the whole work of this collaborative effort only will be finally transferred into the deciphering of one chromosome, the genic sequences or the DNA sequences. So these fragments have to be amplified, because every time and while transferring or while transshipment and all, there can be damage can take place. So they will be have to be amplified. And how we can amplify the DNA fragments means by cloning. It can be cloned into a suitable host. Host means commonly we are using the host bacteria and yeast because they are unicellular. And they can either by budding or by binary fission, they can multiply. So once this DNA, if you are incorporated into the bacteria or yeast, they will incorporated along with the bacterial genome or with the yeast genome, and they make multiple copies. How many of copies we want, that many copies they will multiply. With the help of vectors, we have already learned, which is carry the foreign DNA. So the vectors here commonly we are using is artificial chromosomes, that is bacterial artificial chromosome or yeast artificial chromosome. So we will incorporate our DNA, which DNA we have to, DNA fragment we have to take or sequence. To be sequenced, that sequence DNA fragment will be incorporated into the back or yak. Then that plasma vector is incorporated into the bacteria or into the yeast host. So that step is called as cloning step. So the first one is isolation, second step is fragmentation, third one is cloning into a host with the help of vectors. This foreign DNA will be amplified as many copies as we need. Once that many copies are made within the lab, then this is by using the chain termination method. We can sequence using the automated DNA sequencers. That only I said, we will be put it into PCR machine, and into that machine we will add the primer DNA polymerase enzyme, this template from which is cloned from the above method, and then it will be added with the dideoxynucleotides and their order, and then overlapping fragments will be many overlapping fragments will be produced. So the next step is, so many overlapping fragments, we got many fragments with a different length. That fragments were arranged based on overlapping fragments. So many fragments, then finally they will be arranged into a linear sequence. Once it is arranged, then the next step is alignment of these sequences based on computer-based program. Because automatically, if one or two fragments only produce, means it is easy for us to isolate manually or to align it manually. But at a time, they'll make many copies of this one, millions and trillions. When you are repeating it 30 cycles and all, we have learned already. Billions of copies will be produced. So all these copies, their position, everything and all different. So we have to align it, and we have to find out how many places the A is repeated, how many places the G is repeated, how many places the C is repeated, such and such. So that is humanly it is not possible. So that for that alignment we need many computer-based programs. With the help of computers, the locations can be aligned. Once it is alignment is over, means it can be annotated. Annotated means whether this one is in the first, that fragment from one region is aligned with the annotated with the other fragment. So upper region or lower region. Is it present on the upper half of the chromosome or lower half of the chromosomes? Their overlapping again can be taking place. So that alignment is annotated. It can be annotated. Then it can be assigned. So whether that regions are in the first chromosome or in the second or in the 23rd or in the X or Y. Then finally it will be assigned, and then the location also will be assembled. So these are the main steps. So first one, once again I am summarizing for the examination point. These points only is essential. That is isolation of the DNA from the cell, then fragmentation by restriction endonuclease. The third one, this fragment is cloned into a host, cloned within a host with the help of vectors of BAC and YAC. Then these fragments were sequenced using automated DNA sequencers. Then it is arranged based on their overlapping fragments. After arranging, then it is to be aligned with the help of computer softwares. And then the aligned sequences are assigned, annotated, and then assigned to the particular chromosome. So then you will get the whole sequences of bases which are present in the whole DNA sequences. So these steps are very important, and the goal, then salient features, then the methodology, the principle. Everything is very important. With this, we have come into a conclusion. Thank you very much.